The transfer portal is open, and suddenly Baylor needs a quarterback. But can they afford one?
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Game Time and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in the world. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of ESPN Central Texas and the Rogue Media Network. I appreciate you guys making it your first listen today and every day because we are entering into portal chaos. Okay, it's open. More people are in. Baylor lost another quarterback. Can they go out and actually afford DJ Lagway? Plus, do you want to replace an Auburn transfer with another Auburn transfer? Because we're starting to hear the names of some of the quarterbacks that have actually scheduled their visit so far. Are any of these a good enough fit for Baylor? And the most divisive player in college basketball made his debut on Saturday. What do we think of James Najee? All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. But we start where we start. The portal is open. Ironically, coincidentally, right as Stranger Things ends, the portal opens, and we have got something much, much scarier than the upside down. And that is 1 in every 3 college football players entering the transfer portal and trying to find a new place to play next year. It has already hit Baylor. It will continue to hit Baylor with some more hits over the weekend, not the least of which being backup quarterback, future starting quarterback potentially, and former Auburn transfer Walker White. He enters the transfer portal over the weekend, and it's transfer number 2 in 2 years. And just as we sat up here around this time last year, and I was telling you that Baylor finally has a succession plan at quarterback, a good present, a good future, part of it's up in smoke here. And I say part of it because Edward Griffin was part of that plan as well, and he's still a Baylor Bear. He's still here. Walker White, no longer. And this was, I'll call it a confusing tenure. You know, this is a guy that came in last year and, transferred after 1 season at Auburn. And you're thinking, okay, this kid's looking for a fresh start here. It clearly wasn't going a great direction at Auburn. Even going into the season. Of course, I know the irony that they kicked the crap out of Baylor. But things were not looking great last offseason for Auburn. And you're thinking, okay, 1 year, kid thinks maybe he made a mistake. Here's a better chance for him to get closer to a starting role and develop as a quarterback, work under Jake Spavital, fine. Then he doesn't take a snap. And it's 2 transfers in 2 years. And you're starting to think, well, who's making the decisions here? Is he getting good advice? Did he want to be here? Is this someone who's looking for a starting job? I know that's what Auburn fans were saying last year. Right? He's just looking for a place he can go in and start right away. He's looking for favors. And I don't know if that's the case, but 2 transfers in 2 years with very, very little experience on the football field in game action, it's a puzzling one. And specifically his time at Baylor, because I said it as early as September, that Samford game where they're up big, Sawyer gets taken out third quarter, and Nate Bennett goes in. And at the time, everyone was like, well, he's been in the system longer. Like, been in the system long enough to hand the ball off? Like, that's all you were going to do with whatever it was, 42-7 lead, just handing the ball off. Why not put out your guy who you think is going to be the next starter for your team? He's listed as the backup plenty, Walker White. Why not send him out there? Call an audible, whatever it may be. See what he can do getting outside the pocket and running. And we never saw that. Never saw it. Just didn't play for Baylor. It was very odd. I thought it was very odd even early on in the season. And I think that was the company line of like, oh, well, Nate Bennett's been in here longer. And then at the end of the season, Walker White doesn't take a snap, and now he's in the transfer portal. So that's kind of the year-to-year business of college football. And I don't think there's any quarterback in the country that is staying behind to be a backup year after year. Whatever red flags that raises for you, I get it. But what a weird tenure, I would say, for Walker White at Baylor. Appreciate him coming on the show. Came on the show right after the transfer last year. Spoke very candidly about it. I don't think he ran away from anything. But here we are a year later, and he's in the portal again. And all of a sudden, Baylor's quarterback situation's in flux. If you had ranked, which I did a little bit of, but if you had ranked like the positions that Baylor really needed help in the portal this year, quarterback would have been like 5th or 6th, even though you lost your starter and no one played meaningful snaps last year. Part of that's because your developer at quarterback at Jake Spavital, I have a lot of trust in him. And part of it is because if you don't have a line, what's the quarterback going to do? Or if the quarterback doesn't have anybody to throw to, what's he going to do? And now it's moving up the depth chart here. You've lost 2 quarterbacks. You're basically your top 2 quarterbacks. So you need to go out and get somebody. And now the name DJ Lagway comes back into focus. What year is it? Seriously, are we at the beginning of 2026 or are we at the beginning of 2024? Time is a flat circle, and maybe the portal just brings that back. But here we are talking about Walker White and DJ Lagway again. It's crazy. And oh, by the way, we've got a name later in the show that'll take you back even farther. Man, it's nuts. What we have invented time travel here on Locked On Baylor. But yeah, maybe the replacement for Walker White is DJ Lagway. 2 years ago, we were saying, bummer, you didn't get DJ Lagway. Maybe the replacement is Walker White. It's a flat circle, man. Here we are. DJ Lagway is a name that continues to pop up. We've not heard an official visit, and that's big at this point in the cycle. Because we have heard he's taking an official visit to Florida State. Whoa, that'll get the Gators riled up, huh? But we have not heard a Baylor one. I'll tell you this. What I've heard from people around this situation, specifically this situation, and also around the Baylor football program, there have been talks there. There have been talks. We have heard that DJ Lagway likes Baylor, likes the idea of coming to Baylor, really likes Jake Spavital. That's something we've talked about on this show before, that the family really likes Jake Spavital. But it hasn't come together yet, because now what I'm also hearing is it's going to probably come down to money. And that's what college football is these days, whether y'all like it or not. That's what college sports is. And if you're Baylor, as much as that position can change a lot of outcomes, can you afford to spend close to $1 million on a quarterback right now? I don't know that you can. And there are going to be a lot of people that are going to say, here's Baylor playing poor again, cheaping out, which we've pushed back on a lot. Baylor's not poor. Not as poor as they like to make themselves out to be. But when you have got this much to replace in the portal, just to have a serviceable team on the field, would it be reckless to spend nearly $1 million on a quarterback with the potential like DJ Lagway has? Because let's be honest, man, I would take DJ Lagway here in a second, in a heartbeat. I would be dancing around on this show if DJ Lagway became a Baylor Bear. But to say that he is a sure thing and can elevate your team as a starter next year, especially with all the stuff that Baylor's got to fix position-wise, I think that's disingenuous. I think that's a huge risk. Because he's coming off a down year with a team that has more talent than Baylor, probably. More, in terms of the ratings and the stars. Yeah. And they also went 5-7. His coach did get fired. He led the Power 4 in interceptions. So as much as the, people are going to be saying, here's Baylor, they're not ready to pay market value. They're not going to get the star quarterback. It is not a sure thing. If you're looking at other quarterbacks in the portal. You know, there's a reason there are bigger programs going after Brendan Sorsby and Sam Levitt than they are DJ Lagway, who is still a top 5 portal quarterback, according to some outlets here. But, you know, Drew Mestamaker might be a more sure thing than DJ Lagway, but the potential is through the roof. Like, let's also be clear about that. You know, this was the number 1 quarterback recruit in the country 2 years ago. Not 5 years ago. You know, he's not Tate Martell. Like, this kid has shown plenty of competence at the college level, freshman All-American, and his athleticism and his arm strength, man, it is through the roof. So I'd love to have a guy that was being compared to Vince Young in high school on the team. But the question is it smart for Baylor? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Of course, you know, we're dropping every weekday in the morning on YouTube and then wherever you get your podcasts as well. We're not done yet, though. When we come back, we're going to talk about some other names that have been thrown around at the quarterback position for Baylor. Are you replacing an Auburn transfer with an Auburn transfer? We'll talk about that next on Locked On Baylor. First, today's episode of Locked On Baylor is brought to you by our good friends over at Game Time. You know them. You love them. They are the only place that I go to buy my tickets for literally anything that needs a ticket, okay? Game Time is the place that I turn to. There's nothing like college football, college basketball, more so than the pros. You just want to be there, right? The moments that you remember forever. But getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with the long queues, the logins, the prices jumping at checkout. It's a mess. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and basketball tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I love being able to see the view from my seat before I'm buying. I know exactly what I'm getting there. And my favorite part, no hidden fees. Knowing your prices up front makes the whole process totally stress-free. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, all one word, all caps, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Back here on Locked On Baylor, transfer portal chaos. Walker White has entered the transfer portal for the Baylor Bears, and now Dave Aranda's got to be thinking, do I replace an Auburn transfer with an Auburn transfer? Because suddenly, Baylor's quarterback room needs some help. And Auburn is letting all their quarterbacks go, which I do think is kind of wild. Like, I know, transfer portal era, new coach, but like not one of them was like, man, you know what? I think they'll stick around. I think I can now I was fifth string. Now I can be the backup. It's not happening. They're all leaving. And one of the first names on the list for Baylor in terms of guys who are taking visits is Ashton Daniels, the guy who kind of replaced Walker White, but most would argue that Deuce Knight did, at Auburn. Ashton Daniels now has a visit scheduled to Baylor. And Daniels has an interesting career. Let's put it that way. Okay, 3 seasons at Stanford, 2 as the starter, and then a season at Auburn. Okay, and he's not the most accurate quarterback of all time. He went 5 for 6 in his first season at Stanford. You take that out, and he's less than 60% in his completion percentage. Can make plays with his feet for sure. Dual threat, absolutely. But not much of a pocket passer. And his starting debut for Auburn was so bad that it finally got Hugh Freeze fired. That was the 10-3 loss to Kentucky, which just so happens to be one of the other teams that he is visiting, the Kentucky Wildcats, and went 0-3 as a starter for Auburn. And the second game was actually pretty good, by the way. Vanderbilt, he actually played really well. 31 of 44 for 350 and a couple of touchdowns, no picks. Did it on the ground too, 89 rushing yards, had 100 rushing yards in the Iron Bowl. So like this kid is capable. And that's kind of the weird thing about Ashton Daniels' career is he is very much capable. Like the athleticism and to some degree the arm strength is there, right? Like the kid doesn't look completely lost out there, but sometimes he'll give you a performance where he does look completely lost, like he did against Kentucky. And the big thing that worries me about Ashton Daniels, more so than the completion percentage, which I take more seriously than pretty much any other quarterback stat, it's tough to teach accuracy and decision-making. You kind of either have it or you don't. Ashton Daniels, the other thing that really concerns me, through 3 seasons at Stanford, the Cardinals were 9-27, 3-9 for 3 straight years. And then he goes to Auburn, and they have a losing season as well. And he's 0-3 as a starter. He doesn't win football games. Like, you're going to bring in a guy with 1 year of eligibility, supposed to be the veteran guy on the group, and he's never experienced a bowl game, never experienced a winning season, never been around a culture that demands winning. And, and people are going to be like, well, Cam, talk about Baylor here. They were 3-9 2 years ago. They were 5-7 this year. What do you mean? Like, what do you expect? I'm not expecting a national champion quarterback to come in or anything like that. But the thing is, Baylor needs to change. They need to change. They need to become a team that's about winning. And Ashton Daniels, Lord help him, man. It's not like he's not putting in an effort, but his teams don't win. So I would probably stay away. But he does have a lot of experience as a starting quarterback. So can you get someone who has a lot of experience as a starting quarterback and has done some winning? Some? Well, maybe then you're looking to the group of 5. And you're looking at J.C. French of Georgia State. Maybe that's the way you're looking. Georgia Southern. I say Georgia State. Georgia Southern. The team that Baylor was supposed to play in the Birmingham Bowl as like the third invitee. Remember, no one would play Georgia Southern. So if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for experience and some winning, you could talk about J.C. French. J.C. French, the 4th, who comes in with, it looks like, 1 year of eligibility left. This kid, by the numbers and by some of the highlights, is probably more what you're looking for, okay? Albeit at a lower level. He was over 63% completion percentage both seasons as the starter at Georgia Southern. In fact, 1 year, he was 66%, which is the highest single season rating that completion percentage anyway, that a Georgia Southern player has ever had. And nobody in Georgia Southern's illustrious football history has thrown for more yards than J.C. French the 4th. And what I like about him, which is what some Baylor fans won't like about him, is there's some Charlie Brewer there. There's some Charlie Brewer in J.C. French the 4th. And maybe that means there's a little bit of Blake Shapen, because Blake Shapen had some Charlie Brewer. But you see a lot of the parallels. Okay? He's averaging less than 8 yards a throw. That's fine. He's 6'1", 200 pounds. So he's not one of these quarterbacks that you've made from marble. You've made from granite. Sculpt it. You hit it one time and bang, it falls off, and it's this 6'5", muscular dude with long blonde hair. It's not that. But he's gritty. He's tough. If you're watching on YouTube, you could see this picture of him. Look at him. Look at how dirty that jersey is, man. That whole uniform. That is what Charlie Brewer used to look like at the end of a game. There's a little bit of that intangible there when you watch him. There's a little bit of that grit, a little bit more of that want to. And maybe that is something Baylor needs for a year. Maybe that kind of grit is exactly what they're looking for. And I say grit as if it's a bad thing. Like, the numbers are still pretty good. 2,900 yards. He threw 20 touchdowns last year. Only 8 picks in 13 games. Like that sounds a lot like a Charlie Brewer stat line right there. At least to me, man. Just throwing for 230 a game. Steps up in the big ones, steps up in some of the close ones. Big time. They beat App State twice this year. That was the team that filled in. The first time, which was at Boone, he had his season high, and I think his career high, 352 yards passing. Guy was a dog, an absolute dog, in a big game for them. At Marshall, on the road, they needed a last possession victory. Threw for 313 in that game. So a dog in the big games, man. Maybe that's the start. Maybe that's the start for Baylor. Because the third option, you thought we were going back in the time machine earlier in the show. The third option, that is an option, was not scheduled to visit because his team technically is still in the college football playoff. I say like technically as in technically his team. Is there any interest in bringing back Austin Novosad? Bringing back someone who was never actually here. I know a lot of Baylor fans had a bit of a chuckle seeing Austin Novosad go in the transfer portal. And he took more meaningful snaps than Walker White did this year for the Oregon Ducks. He's still traveling with the team, but obviously is weighing his options. For a long time, saying his name was like saying Voldemort around Baylor annals. We all remember the story, December 2022, at the 11th hour with everything going wrong. At the 11th hour before signing day, Austin Novosad, after being steadfast in his commitment for months and months after Ohio State and A&M went after him, said, actually, I'm going to go to Oregon. Sight unseen, never took a visit. Rumors were he got paid over $1 million for a guy who's barely a 4-star out of Dripping Springs High School. And now 2 years later, he didn't take many snaps in an Oregon uniform. He threw 15 passes in 3 seasons at Oregon. 4 in the last 2 years. And the situation is odd, right? After his second year, they went out and they got a transfer portal quarterback who was exactly his age in Dante Moore. Became a pretty good one. And that was after they got Dylan Gabriel, And this year, he wasn't even the backup. He was replaced by a walk-on as the backup at Oregon. So that might be a telling sign of the way they thought of a team, obviously a program that is excellent at developing quarterbacks and putting them in the NFL. They took a walk-on over him this year, and they went out and spent a lot of money in the portal on somebody else last year. This is an interesting one. Do you take a guy with only potential and not experience? Ashton Daniels has probably less potential because we know what he is, but he has experience. DJ Lagway has more potential and more experience. Austin Novosad was still a guy this coaching staff loved, banked their whole class around 2 years ago. Could we actually see him in Baylor green and gold after all? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Of course, we drop in every morning on YouTube and then wherever you get your podcasts as well. It's the #1 Baylor football show on YouTube, and that reason is because of you guys. When we come back, let's talk some hardwood. The most divisive player in college basketball has made his debut. What did we all think of James Nnaji? Well, I'll at least give you my reaction. Coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Guys, I know we are wallowing in the mire of a Monday after New Year's, but we're all looking forward to Friday, right? Working for the weekend. Well, I'm going to make your Fridays even better, or at least FanDuel's going to. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern, that's 5 to 6:30 Central, have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. It's right before the games, right before the weekend starts, and it adds extra energy with new boosts, new bonuses, and new surprises. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour. Every Friday from 5 to 6:30 p.m. Central Time. A little basketball, little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Yes, the most divisive player in college basketball made his debut for the Baylor Bears on Saturday. Now, it wasn't a great day for Baylor. They lost to TCU. I don't think that's too stunning, but I'll get to more of that in a second. But James Najee was the story. Apparently, loud, deafening boos whenever he touched the ball and when he checked into the game. I heard some light booing. Probably a lot of people who didn't even know who he was. But what you definitely did get was a lot of college basketball fans from around the country dunking the basketball on social media. Ha! Baylor loses. James Najee stinks. I just didn't see it that way, personally, watching the game. You look at the box score, and it's not great, right? It's fine. I wouldn't even call it fine. It wouldn't look good. But when you watch the game, I think that's about what we should have expected from James Najee. You know, this is a guy who has not played 5-on-5 basketball for months. You know, he came in last week, you know, and like just the conditioning aspect of it to get up to speed to play a Big 12 basketball game. Like, that's not an easy thing to do. I don't care how much you've been working out the last couple of months to play a 5-on-5 full tilt basketball game at the highest collegiate level, being the Big 12. Like, that's difficult to do. And you saw it. Like, I don't think he was being outmatched physically, but he gets 4 fouls in a limited amount of time. It was like 10 minutes or something. 16 minutes. Yeah. 4 fouls in 16 minutes. But that's because he doesn't have a step on these guys. He just doesn't. That's where you see it. He's not being outmatched physically per se, but he is a step behind everybody. So here's the other thing that it leads me to. Okay, and it's like every wrinkle of this situation, like I'm already sick of. You know what I mean? Like I'm sick of talking about this, man. You know, I don't love that you could do that. You know, nothing against necessarily James Najee, the player. I don't like the situation. Most of us don't like it. Now it comes to the point where we have to defend it because people, opposition, have taken it to the nth degree. And I've got the TCU athletic director saying, oh, you know, we didn't need a professional. It's like, dude, like your whole team is professional. Our whole team is professional. Everyone's whole team is professional. Okay? You want to say an NBA guy, fine. But they're all professionals. They're all getting paid to play. You know, so it's like it's a holier than thou crap from a bunch of programs that would have done the same thing. Now they didn't, and that's where Baylor's issue is, right? I fully understand that. And the other thing I have issue with is like, oh, everyone's taking their victory lap because they're rooting against Baylor now. Like Baylor was not a Big 12 contending team to begin with. And James Najee does not make them that. I don't care how many NBA Summer League games he played. Okay. He does not step in here and make Baylor a Big 12 contender. He's not going to be a guy that's averaging a double-double or any crap like that. You know, you're hoping he comes in and he's a depth piece that could literally give you minutes, give you some defense, and you hope that he sticks around for next year. But would I call that likely? No, I wouldn't. Okay, because if he does show anything, he's going to go in the transfer portal because everyone goes in the transfer portal, or he's going to go play in the G League / the NBA. Probably more likely the G League. So it does kind of suck from a Baylor fan standpoint that we're going to end up, defending this guy and this move to the end of time, and he's going to be here for a couple of months. And again, I just don't he's going to help them. Sure, he is going to help them. But is he going to elevate them to the highest echelon of the Big 12? No way, man. And you're crazy if you think he's going to. And so that's why a bunch of fans are going to take victory laps all year. And so I am kind of getting sick of that. But in terms of the player, that's what you expected, man. He's not going to be up to speed, and that's fine. Pulled down 5 points and 4 rebounds in 16 minutes. If there was someone who was just on their bench for the first couple of months of the season and then did that in the Big 12 game, you'd be like, all right, perfect. You do have some depth there because that's all it is. It's depth. So yeah, I'm already sick of this whole situation because I don't think you should be bringing in NBA draft picks, NBA Summer League players. I don't. But I'm also just the whole world has gone off the deep end with this. And I thought he was fine. From Baylor's standpoint, it was not a great game. You were even in the second half. It still lost by 6. That offense was dreadful in the first half and pretty bad after you got yourself back in the game. In the last couple of minutes of the game, 2-3 minutes, it was really bad again. This is where I know it's on the road. Schallmeyer Arena is not a very tough place to play. You've got to win these games if you have any hope of being better than last year. And that means not scratching and clawing for every game to get in the NCAA tournament. But I think this team is going to have to scratch and claw in every game to get in the NCAA tournament. Let me know what you think about this team, what you thought about James Nnaji's debut. Let me know in the comments section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and find us on YouTube every morning, weekdays, and then wherever you get your podcasts as well. Thank you guys so much for making it your first listen today and every day. And we will see you tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Baylor.